Hi everyone, and welcome to our screencast presentation. I'm Ishaan Rehmani, and I'm demoing our app today on behalf of my team, Hexagon Massage. Hexagon is a proof of concept aimed at delivering real-time, instantaneous massage services to its clients in the Edmonton area. It takes insight from Uber's logical model where bookings between clients and therapists are based on a real-time service. As a client, you can register with our app by providing information including name, email, address, phone number, and a virtual copy of your driver's license. The registration process is quite similar for a therapist, where the only extra piece of information required is a copy of your certification. In this demo, I'll be walking you through the entire booking process, including generating a new booking request, rebooking, and much more. Here on the screen, I have two emulators running in tandem to showcase the entire app flow. The emulator on the left, the Apple iPhone, is used to showcase the client side of things to see how a client books a new request and how that app flow works. On the right, the Android Nexus emulator is used to showcase the therapist side of things to see how a booking comes into the therapist's queue and how they can accept or reject that booking. So without further ado, let's get started. This is our app's home screen. So when our app launches for the first time, this is what you see. So we'll click the Get Started button. In this page here, we just get a bit of insight regarding how our app process works, a bit more information as to how the logistics of our app works, how the entire process works. So we'll go on to the next screen into the login page. In the login page, you can see a couple things. So you can see a toggle button that routes you to register as a new customer. So as previously mentioned, you need to input your credentials as well as a copy of your driver's license if you're a new customer. Likewise, for the therapist, the process is pretty similar. The only information that differs between a client and a therapist is the uploading of a certification. In this demo, I have already created two accounts. So I'll log into those accounts and kickstart the app process. Awesome. So this is the home screen for both the client and therapist. So let's start off with the client. On the client's homepage on the left, we essentially see a button to start a new booking request. The homepage for the client is essentially designed to kickstart a new booking request process. While for the therapist on the right, you can see a metric to break down the revenue generation on a monthly basis. This metric is used to give the therapist more insights about their bookings and see what months are most profitable and where they're earning the maximum amount of cash flow. There's also a helpful tips section where the therapist can scroll through and see a bunch of insights about their booking and just help them prepare for their booking as much as possible. In this case, the therapist that we're working with is John Anthony, while the client that we're working with is Sally Sample. As you can see, John has his availability toggle set to yes or available. That means on every booking request in John's designated area, John should show up in the booking process. So let's kickstart a new booking process for Sally. Sally here can choose between 3 massage types. In this case, let's choose the therapeutic massage. On this screen here, we can essentially see a map view where the client can enter their location in order to book a massage. In this case, let's say Soul Fried Chicken is our location where the massage is set to be booked. So once the location comes up, we can hit on confirm, and that should take you to a list of therapists. In this case, John is the only available therapist in the area. So let's click on John to see if we can book with John. So once we click on a therapist, we can see a bit more information about that particular therapist, including their description, their star rating, and their price. So let's say Sally is satisfied with John. Sally clicks on the Book Now button. Once the Book Now button is clicked, Sally is notified that, okay, John has gotten the request and John is reviewing that request. And once that request is accepted, the entire booking process will kickstart and, that workflow works. From there, to see if that booking request has come onto John's queue, we'll go over to the Bookings tab here. And surely enough, that booking request does come up. Let's click on that request. And on this request here, we can see a bunch of details about the booking. So we can see the name of the client that is booking the massage. We can see the location where the massage was set to happen. We can see a list of reviews about the client, and we can see the type of massage that is requested by the client. In this case, the therapist has two options, which is accepting the massage or declining it. For the purposes of this demo, we'll be walking you through the entire process, which means booking acceptance and booking declining. So in this case, let's decline the request. Once the request is declined, the client should be notified of this, and the client should be routed back to the homepage, which is what happens in this case. Let's kickstart a new booking process, and this time let's enter an address at the U of A to see if John can accept this request this time. So in this case, there are two therapists that are found in the designated area that have their availability toggle set on, and if we scroll, John is also one of them. Since we want to book with John, let's click on John and let's click on book with John. So as previously mentioned, this kickstarts a new request and sends this alert to the therapist. So the therapist can go onto the bookings tab and click on that request, and surely enough, they get a request from Sally, a changed address, and their sort of massage tag. Let's accept the massage. In this case, let's accept the request. And as soon as the request is accepted, the client is routed to the booking confirmation page. On the booking confirmation page, we get a bit more insight about the client's booking and just gives them a sort of confirmation that their booking is actually happening. One important thing to note is the time for the booking is set to 4 p.m., while the time right now is 3 p.m. The reason for this is we're allowing our therapists an hour's time to get to their client's location. As previously noted, this follows a Uber-esque model, but this is our major deviation away from Uber's model, where we give our therapists an hour's time to get to their client's location. On the right here, once the therapist gets to the client's location, they have to click the Start Session button to validate that the booking is in fact taking place. This is done in order to avoid any sort of corner cutting or any sort of other legal issues that could arise. So once the therapist is at the client's location, they'll click on the Start Session button, and that should kickstart a timer just to validate that session. In this case, we have that timer set to 10 seconds, but that could obviously be fiddled with and altered based on necessity. So once the session is done, we'll click the End Session button, and that should route the client and the therapist to a reviews prompt. So in this reviews prompt, the client and the therapist can rate each other and give their review to one another. In this case, we'll start off with the therapist first. The therapist really liked Sally. Sally was great and was lovely to work with. So we'll say Sally was great. Awesome. And on the client side, clients also liked John a lot, and we're going to give John a 5-star positive review. John was awesome. John was great. Okay, cool. So let's hit the submit button and send our review over. So once that review is sent on the therapist's end, there's nothing else that the therapist needs to do. That ends the entire booking process flow for the therapist, and that's the only thing that the therapist needs to do. This makes our app very simple for the therapist to use, as there's very little overhead on their end. In this case, on the client side, let's submit this review. After submitting the review, the client has to pay their therapist. So in this case, let's enter a tip amount for $50, and let's enter a payment card in order to process this payment. Awesome. So once the card is entered and we're satisfied with everything, we'll click on the confirm payment button. And once this payment is confirmed, the client is routed to the payment process page, where it essentially showcases the acceptance of a valid payment method. Once this is done, the client is routed back to the home page, and that ends the entire booking process for the client as well. The only extra information that I wanted to showcase was a client can go to their transactions tab to see a list of their recent transactions. In this case, once that list comes up, a client can choose to review a list and review their recent transactions and see if they want to rebook. So Sally has a bunch of transactions. In this case, the transaction with John, the most recent transaction, is the one that is found first on this list. So we'll click on view receipt. In this receipt, they can look at a bunch of information regarding their session. In this case, let's say Sally really enjoyed working with John. So Sally wants to rebook with John. So Sally clicks on the rebook with therapist button, and that should take her back to the map where they can essentially enter their location of choice. In this case, let's enter soul fried chicken again. as the therapist's location. And surely enough, that routes her to that location, and hit confirm to confirm that session. And this takes you back to the therapist's profile page. Since we're only booking with one therapist, we want to showcase that therapist here. And that takes you right to that therapist's profile page. And let's say Sally wants to book with John and clicks on the book now button. This request would come up on John's bookings tab. And surely enough, this request is up. As previously mentioned, the therapist can choose between accepting and declining a request. In this case, John isn't comfortable with traveling that far or isn't comfortable with going that way. So John will click decline, and that should route Sally back to the homepage. And once that is done, we'll demo the last piece of the app, which is the profile page. On the profile page, the customer or the therapist can just find a bit of information regarding themselves, pieces of information that they've entered on the app when they first registered. They can go over to the edit profile button where they can edit information that they have, change of address, anything. Once a piece of information is edited, that request would be sent over to the system administrator, and the admin would give them privileges. The admin would review that request and see if a change of information is accepted or not, and that process would work that way. So that wraps up our app. So in this demo, we've gone through the entire booking process for the app on the therapist's end and the client's end. To recap, the client can book a new request, rebook a request, review their request, and can edit their profile and information as needed. On the therapist's side, they can review a request, they can accept or decline a request based on their need. After accepting a request, they must start a session in order to validate that session, after which they essentially end their request. The booking process is very simple for both the client and therapist, and that's what our app tries to utilize. Lastly, our app is designed as a proof of concept for now, but we're hoping this app gets further implementations and further enhancements, and we would love to see it out in the open world someday. As previously mentioned, I'm Ishaan Rehmani, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to present our app in front of everybody, and I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.